and currently a member also in third backward classes commission. He is interested in the history, sociology, economy. The best known of Dr. Bajaj's work is the religious demography of India, a comprehensive and authoritative compilation of the data on the changing religious profile of India. He is currently a member of the Indian Council of Social Science Research and National Council of Rural Institutes. He has been member of the governing bodies of several apex institutions. He has been nominated a member of the National Committee to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Indian independence. It's my honor to welcome Dr. J.K.Bajaj to this session.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
And namaste. And we have Mayank Jain ji, an eminent filmmaker for 25 years. He has made more than 50 films on a wide range of subjects which have received wide appreciation. He has worked in great idea on the issues of national security, agriculture, infrastructure, nutrition, and health in his. He has produced and directed television programs on a wide range of topics, produced an investigative 90-minute documentary on national security, the Bangla Crescent, ISI Madrasas and Infiltration, which was released to the national press by senior IPS officers Shri K.P.S. Gill, Shri Prakash Singh and Shri R.K. Hori in New Delhi in 2005. He scripted and directed a 10-episode series of health awareness documentaries titled Death Warrant for Doordarshan. The episodes covered topics such as tobacco abuse, alcohol abuse, drug addiction, anxiety, HIV/AIDS, food adulteration, obesity, spurious medicines, electrical safety, and quackery. It's my honor to welcome Shri Mayank Jain ji to our discussion. And the session would be moderated by Shri Surendranath ji from Indic Academy. He is a columnist and a speaker on various topics relating to India's history and specifically the traditional knowledge system. He is the consulting editor at Indic today. Surendranath ji has run workshops on the 6 Vedangas and written on issues of cultural encounters that India has had in the past several centuries. He is also our respected member of SMaRT. I really delighted to welcome Surendranath ji to moderate this session. To start with the session, we will have Dr. J.K.Bajaj ji's speech followed by Mayank Jain ji and then a Q&A moderated by Surendranath ji. Namaste. Dr. J.K.Bajaj ji.
Namaskar. The religious demography of India has been going drastic changes. A few days back, the Pew Research Center issued a report which said that in the 50 years, or is it now 60, from 51 to 2011, the proportion of Hindus in India has gone down by only 4 percentage points from 84.1 to 79.8%. And that of the Muslims has gone up by only 5 percentage points from 9.8 to 14.2. And this became the headline statement in many newspapers saying that there's nothing to worry. The change is only of 4 to 5 percentage points in 60 years. And there's a very slow increase of Muslims, slow decrease of Hindus. But this is a way of saying 5 percentage point decline in the mainstream population of a country which has just gone through a partition on the basis of religion alone. In the remaining country, the mainstream population going down about 4 to 5 percentage points is a very major historic event. It's not a minor thing. But in India, it has become the way to say that things are happening. But don't worry, there's nothing significant in it. In fact, Satchar in his that massive report he produced on what all we need to do for the Muslim minorities, he went through the data that we had produced, mentioned it, and said that they are saying that by mid 21st century or somewhat later, in the Indian region, which means in the India which was before partition, Hindus will become a minority. He said that it may happen, may not happen, but how does it matter who is a minority in India, who is a majority in India? If one goes by that point of view, that really doesn't matter who is the majority in India or in the current Indian Union, then of course data doesn't matter. But generally civilizations believe that the mainstream population, the carriers of the civilization, their presence matters, their numbers matter. If civilization matters, their numbers matter. If culture matters, their numbers matter. And when we give this figure of 5%, that seems small, but what one has to look at is the detail. 5% is all of India, and all of India is not undergoing demographic change. There are areas which are going very drastic demographic change. There is Mewat in our neighborhood, where the proportion of Muslims would have gone up from 66% in 1981 to about 80% now. There's Western UP, this Muradabad, Muzaffarnagar, Rampur, that whole belt, where the proportion of Muslims between 1951 and now would have gone up by about 10 percentage points. Further east, you start from Purnia area of the old Purnia area of Bihar and continue along the border. You go to Santhal Pargana, and then you have this chicken neck area of Assam, chicken neck area of northern Bengal, and then you move into Assam. In this whole region, the proportion of Hindus would have gone down by about 15 percentage points in the last 5 decades or 6 decades. No, that makes that area, in fact, in almost all districts of that area, Hindus are now in a minority already. And when I showed that map to one of the important historical philosophers, he said that if he had seen this map for any country of the world, he would be convinced that it will be very difficult to keep this area within the Indian nation. It will be difficult to do it for countries which are thought to be having a strong state. And he said, India is a soft state. And if you have that kind of maps where you see the whole border belt starting from Santhal Pargana, Purnia, up to the east in the lower Assam, then you are in some difficult situation. Beyond that is the northeast, which has completely got Christianized. Arunachal Pradesh was left, which has now gone. And I think we'll discuss in detail about some aspects of it. But what to begin with, I want to point out is that the demographic changes of the last 60 years and also of the last 100 years, 110 years, are extremely concerning as far as India is concerned. Very large parts of India are becoming outside the reach of the mainstream religion of this country. A part of India in the 20th century has already become outside the reach of India. And much of it is in the coastal in the border. Then there's the coastal region where you have Kanyakumari and Kerala, where Indians are almost already in a minority. And the further demographic data on the fertility ratios, on relation of literacy with fertility, number of children being born, is all extremely concerning. In Jammu and Kashmir today, 80% of the children born, according to the 2011 census, 80% of the children born were Muslim children. In Kerala, more than 45% of the children born in Kerala today are Muslim children. So the things are, and there are various pockets emerging. We have Gajapati and Kandamal in Odisha. We have where Christians have taken over. We have in Punjab, you have a place like Dera Baba Nanak, where Christians today will be forming 20% of the population. So in pockets, in whole belts, in large regions on the border, we are in religionists in general and Hindus in particular are under great pressure. I think this is something we should keep looking at carefully. What are the solutions we'll discuss as we go along. I think I'll stop at this, Surendranath.
Yes, should I come in? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Shri J.K.Bajaj ji. Yeah, Mayank ji, you can start. Yeah.
Yes, see, demography has become a tool for aggressive cults to use it as a new tool for aggression. It is a new tool of imperialism. They use the increasing numbers to subvert democracy. So if suppose a very non-aggressive cult like Jainism, suppose you have large number of Jains who are increasing in numbers, right? Suppose let us imagine a scenario. So nobody would be scared of that scenario because it's a non-aggressive cult, and suppose their numbers increase, so there will be more non-violence.
Mayank, we're scared that Jains are decreasing.
Yeah, they are decreasing.
And very fast they are decreasing.
Yeah, they are decreasing very fast. But I am talking of an imaginary scenario. Yeah. Suppose the Jains were to increase at an astronomical rate. So there will be no fear for anybody else because they don't seek domination through taking over the power. In fact, even the animals would be more safe. If Vaishnavas were going to increase in numbers, the same thing would happen. But suppose Nazis were there, and the population of Nazis was going to increase at a very fast pace. So that is something which will scare you. That is a scary scenario. If the population of Nazis grow at a very fast pace. So the tool of aggression is population. It is a bomb, it is a population bomb which is being used. And we are allowing these aggressive cults to take over our country with the help of this tool. And we are sitting quiet. The non-aggressive people, they are sitting absolutely quiet. Even our Bajrang Dal is not seen anywhere. Recently there was a collection for the Ram temple. People were collecting funds for the Ram temple and donations even in a place like Delhi, even in Gujarat. Everywhere these people who were collecting funds were attacked. They were attacked in Kutch, brutally attacked. Then they were attacked brutally in the national capital in Delhi. And some of them were murdered. Some of them, this is in the police records. It was reported. So what is happening is that they will not allow you to function. It's not only taking over the reins of the country by increasing their numbers, taking over the country by winning the elections. It is also on the street. It is their mob power. And we in the educated classes in India, we are just Glaxo babies. We have been given all kinds of protection by our parents. Even in the playground, we'll be told that please don't get hurt. You don't play. If you get hurt, they will not send you next day downstairs. They'll not send you to the playground. So the child is playing with the mobile. So how is he going to defend himself, herself in the... So we are silent spectators waiting for our own slaughter to happen in due course. The first stage is street riots. These riots took place in 2020 in Delhi. There was this Tahir Hussain who had his house inside one of the danger no-go zones in Delhi. And on his terrace, he had all kinds of explosives. He had instruments which could send these bombs from a catapult to long distances. You know, I was shooting in an area in Gujarat, you know, which a no-go area, used to be a very bad no-go area until BJP came to power. This was in the Kalupur Vidhan Sabha Kshetra, that is in Ahmedabad city. And there used to be riots all the time in the 1980s. And recently I had gone there to do some shooting to find out what has happened. So when I was talking to some Hindus who were in this area, they told me that in this area, there used to be 70% of them used to be Hindus in 1956. And 30% were Muslims. By 1998, it was absolutely the opposite. There were only 30% Hindus left and 70% were Muslims. And by the time when I went there in 2018, the numbers of Hindus had dwindled further because they had migrated from there. They ran away. So I was standing on the roof terrace of this gentleman who was telling me about that area, and I was interviewing him for my upcoming documentary. So I asked him that why your houses are at a lower height, and I find the houses of the other community, the dominant peaceful community, that was higher. So they had an advantage. So he said that we have, as Hindus, we have to follow the building bylaws. So we can't build our terrace for more than 4 floors. But the peaceful community makes 5 floors, 6 floors, and they will not be stopped from doing that. So there are 2 advantages. Number one, they get more floor area, so they make more money. They will rent it out, they will sell it. They make more money as compared to their Hindu brothers. And the other advantage is that somebody like Mr. Tahir Hussain can use this higher terrace for throwing stones. And then I was also told that the police in these areas, in Ahmedabad, the situation is much better because the government was very strong. But we have these no-go areas all over India. And a similar story is waiting to be shown, you know, to the people. In these places, all kinds of illegal activities happen. Drugs, jua, they play gambling, illegal gambling dens, prostitution dens. So I'm very sorry to say, but since I'm a reporter, so I'll report it. These things cannot be done without the help of the police. So the police takes money from them in these no-go areas, and they allow these things to happen. Now, when the riots take place, the police has been already on the payroll of these people, peaceful community, has been paying them a monthly allowance so that they're allowed to do gambling, prostitution, alcohol, illegal drugs, etc. Now, how the Hindu would be protected by this police, which is the handmaiden of our peaceful community? So this is the problem. That's why when the VHP man in Delhi had gone to collect funds and he said, Jai Shri Ram, he was lynched inside his house by this mob who entered into his house, broke his head with their lathis, and nothing could be done, and the police was not of much help, because obviously the police might have been on the payroll of these people, which my reporting shows. I've interviewed people, I've got evidence. All these illegal actors. Sir was talking about Mewat. Mewat is the place, if your car gets stolen, then it must have gone to Mewat or some other areas like Surendranath in Delhi. Not Surendranath, Sundarnagri in Delhi. Nowadays, they will dismantle the cars, the whole entire car within a few hours. And I was talking to an intelligence man, a policeman in Faridabad, and I was trying to understand about Mewat. He said that if they have to take one criminal from Mewat for a certain offense, they need 500 policemen. They have to take 500 policemen to Mewat to take out one criminal. And after that, there would be a huge hue and cry. If somebody dies during the firing, police firing or something, they would block the roads and they would take over the entire area. So, Narasimha Rao had come with a solution to some of these problems when he was the Prime Minister. And here in Delhi, we have this Seelampur, Seelampur is one of the no-go areas, one of the biggest no-go areas. So Narasimha Rao put this CRPF battalion, Rapid Action Force. This is a baby of Narasimha Rao. And there were mosques, there was namaz, and then there were announcements from the mosques. They would force people to do certain things. They would advise people to do certain things, and the riots used to happen. So the CRPF people climbed on those minarets and took out the loudspeakers. Most of the problems were solved. Now the Haryana CM Manohar Lalji, he wanted to put a CRPF battalion, RAF battalion inside Mewat, so that area is protected. The anti-national activities are stopped, and these people who are heavily influenced by the Tabligh Jamaat, they will be brought into the mainstream with the help of certain schemes, certain ideas. So now the local Congress MLA, who also belonged to the peaceful community, did not allow the formation of the CRPF unit. So finally, they had to change the place. Although the CRPF said that the design of that land and that land map did not fall into their own parameters. So now they are making another CRPF unit just at the edge of Mewat. So this is a constant. Outside Jaipur, you have got two. Vasundhara had asked for 2 battalions of CRPF, their Rapid Action Force. So now, the entire strategy. So I was once talking to Mr. KPS Gill about these constant problems which happen. So he said, we can't just go on crying that, they are converting, they are beating us, they are doing riots, they are making babies. He said, why don't you make a big Gurudwara or a big temple right in front of the Devband temple, Devband mosque or seminary, right in front of that. Start conversions in Vatican or in Rome or in Europe on a large scale. They understand this language. That's what KPS Gill told me. So KPS Gill was the man who fought terrorism by taking it by the horns. He took his battalion, he took his police force right inside the grasses, the long grasses, where Khalistani terrorists were hiding. He formed a camp right inside their den, and he restricted their movement totally and destroyed them finally. So similar kind of strategy is required. We can't go on defending ourselves. We can't just go on, trying to stop conversion here and there. We should do it. I'm not saying that we should not do it, But now today we have a government in our hand. And they are doing everything one by one. They are doing, and they will do. They will do. Mr. Modi will do it. He has, see, now you see how Pakistan has been exposed, you know. Pakistan, who is supposed to be a great friend of Islam, and in fact, Islam sits very heavily on its head. But China, which has been killing Uyghur Muslims, China, which has been destroying their lives, China, which has been serving pork inside mosques of Uyghur Muslims, China, which is supplying alcohol to them, China, which is asking Uyghur Muslims not to say Salam Alaikum, and a Chinese Communist Party man goes and sits inside their house in the night, sleeps with their women, and sees if somebody is saying Salam Alaikum, and he reports it to his bosses in the Communist Party of China. The same China is the closest ally of Pakistan. So you know, these guys, they understand this language. They have no commitment. Their larger commitment to Islam is missing. It is missing in Turkey also. Turkey is very close to China. So now the Taliban is saying that we'll take care of you because you have done this. You have been closely associated with China. Now we will see. So I'm giving this idea in this demography chapter just to show that these people are not as much a Dara Singh which we have made in our mind. If we have a strategy, if we have our military strategy, and if we have policemen like KPS Gill who could advise us, then we can come up with these ideas to fight it out. So this is a direct consequence of demography, that we have to, our power will slip out of our hands. The democratic structure will be misused, and these people will try to come to power. Before this happens, we must change our laws. We must do something so that democracy is not subverted. What do you say, Dr. Saab? Do you agree with me?
Mayank, I obviously agree with much of what you have said, but if the Islam were not an aggressive religion, it will not be a problem. I don't go by that, because we have a responsibility to this civilization. It doesn't matter any religion which is not based in Sanatana Dharma, any religion which doesn't have the commitment to carry forward the Indian civilization, which has been going on from times uncounted, from Anadi Kala. It is our responsibility that what is Anadi will remain Ananta. So that somebody, some peaceful religion comes and we will not have a problem. We will have a problem if it is not founded in Sanatana Dharma. So for us, the Muslims are as much as an issue as are the Christians. And this land is important. If we seed in terms of demography, we seed geography. We have already done it. That we seeded certain parts of India demographically to other religions, and we lost them geographically. And geography is sacred. That even China, even today, in its constitution writes down that the boundaries of this ancient land are sacred, and the government is constituted to preserve those boundaries. So this is not merely that religion is this kind. That's what we have a problem. We have a problem. We don't have a problem. We have a responsibility to keep this land intact and keep this civilization growing. And that is why if any religion, other than those which are founded in, anchored in Sanatana Dharma, if they start getting demographic predominance in India, it is a sin for the main carriers of Hinduism, main carriers of Sanatana Dharma to have allowed it. So it's not a simple issue. It's a very complicated. And the kind of things that are happening in India. You mentioned Mewat. I remember I was presenting this data, which I have long ago when KPS Gill was alive in his house. And when I reached Mewat, he said, Dr. Bajaj, I have an experience of this area. And it was once I was appointed the Director General of CRPF. And I was passing through this region. And I think all of us should pass through this region sometime. Because you start from Gurgaon towards Firozpur Jirka. You go there, and from Firozpur Jirka, you should perhaps go up and go to this famous, very sacred Tijara temple of the Jains. But you go there, and you, as soon as you go a few kilometers beyond Gurgaon, the ambience changes. What is being sold on the roadside, the food that is being sold on the roadside, that changes. I stayed in Firozpur Jirka in a government circuit house. And I was told, sir, your car is not safe here. So we had to put a watchman in the night there. And so KPS Gill told me that I was passing through this area, and I think he was mentioning this road from Firozpur Jirka to Tijara. On the way, there's a beautiful Shiva temple. And KPS Gill said that I saw this lake there and beautiful forest. And I said, there's some problem with this. And he said, when I was passing through, I said, there's some problem with this area. This is going to become difficult. And then I saw this lake. And I said that I'm going to put up a CRPF camp, CRPF base in this area next to this temple, next to this tank. And he told me that I went back and made the proposal. The base did not come up. I was transferred. Right now, there is I think, CRPF base in that area, because something that is written down in the Government of India files does happen sooner or later. But that's what he told me. So these are very, what is happening in Arunachal? Much of the Northeast got converted to Christianity, Northeast, leaving out Assam, Tripura. Got converted to Christianity fairly early within the first couple of decades after independence, and large part of it happened in the last decade between 1941 and 51. But Arunachal didn't get converted because Arunachal was NEFA, Northeastern Frontier Agency. It was not under civil governance. And 71, I think we brought it under civil governance. And within the next decade, there were no Christians there then. Within one decade, there were 10%. Next day, they were 20%. Now they are 40%. And the major tribes of Arunachal Pradesh, the Nishis now, they are, in 2011, they had become 63% Christian. And today they may be all Christian. The Adis, who are supposed to be strong Hindus, they had become 20%, 28% Christians. The Tangsa, the Vancho, the Nokte, Vanchos were 95% Christians in 2011. There was zero Christianity in this area in 1971. And all of this has happened before our eyes. And it has not happened peacefully. I remember I went to this beautiful place called Devamali in Tirap district. The small place. I was sitting in, I think it would have been an Octa temple where I gave a talk. And the person who was chairing, he at the end said that you people from North, really from India, don't know about us and you don't care to know about us. He knew that I make these atlases of different regions. And he said, why don't you make a few atlases for our area so that the rest of India knows what kind of land this is and what kind of people we are. And then one woman got up and she said, sir, nobody here has the guts to tell you the truth. But to me, nothing matters. So I can tell you that we are living here at mercy. That every Sunday a jeep goes around and leaves pamphlets in our villages saying that next Sunday you have to appear for the mass in this church. And if you don't do it, you know the consequences. And she was crying in public. And this was known everywhere that this decade, prior to 2011, there was aggressive Christianization going on throughout Arunachal Pradesh, and nothing was done. We can excuse ourselves that Meghalaya happened before we were aware. Manipur tribal areas happened before we were aware. Mizoram happened before we were aware. But Arunachal has happened before our eyes with our knowledge. And we are quiet about it because I don't know how it happens that it has stopped mattering to particularly to the Hindus. That it is important. The religion is important. Somebody, I think Surendranath sent me a news item about Punjab that the Sikhs are now sending teams of preachers to the villages to ensure that they remain within the Sikh. And Sikhs have a way of every morning, every evening assembling, sitting in a sangat and talking about religion and what it means and what it does not mean. We have no such way. We are just not, we are Hindus in name. And most of us are happy saying that we are not practicing Hindus. There is
sorry to
Okay.
interrupt. Sorry, extremely sorry. I would request Surendranath to take over the session. Probably we have few questions posted by the participants. Probably that would be, Shri
Thank you,
Surendranath ji.
Anand, sir. Thank you, Anand sir. So, sir, there is a question from one of our participants, which says there are two questions actually, which we will take separately. One is, from the point of view of the establishment and the arms of the government, specifically the legislature and the executive, as to how we are going to handle this legally. How do we structure our laws so that they protect the nature of our country, the religious demographic nature of our country? Sir, would you want to just take a stab at this, Dr. Bajaj?
My understanding is that the right to practice religion is a fundamental right, but right to propagate religion is not a fundamental right of any group. It was an error to put propagation, right to practice and propagation in the Constitution of India. At some point, we have to undo that. The other is that the right to give education according to your ways, according to your religion, is a fundamental right. It was an error to grant that right to the minorities and not to the majority. That there is no reason the Constitution articles which grant the right to the minorities to run educational institutions of their choice in the way they choose to is not given to all communities of India, including the majority community. So these are two major asymmetries in India, that we are a non-propagating religion, and we are giving the right to propagate to others, right to pursue pursue one's religion, do whatever one wants with one's religion, is a fundamental right that people have. But the right to convert others to your religion is not a fundamental right anywhere in the world. It ought not to be a fundamental right if it is said to be a fundamental right. And the right to run education, teach students according to your ways, according to your religion, to run educational institutions of your choice with your management, is a fundamental right, which we are granting only to the minorities and not to the majority. I think both these asymmetries at some point of time will have to be addressed. Otherwise, there's a problem that we are facing. And the other, of course, the second point, which is significant, is that as Mayank ji has been saying, demographic change is an instrument of geographic change. And as I pointed in the beginning, it's the borders of India which are having the most serious problem in terms of demographic changes. And borders of India, borders of any country, are the concern of the state. It is not possible for the people on their own to protect the borders. That's why states are constituted. One of the most important reasons for constituting a state is to protect the borders. So the conversion on the borders or the demographic change on the borders is a responsibility of the state to handle. It's a strategic responsibility in addition to a civilizational responsibility. So the constitutional issue and the administrative strategic issue of the changes in the border and the constitutional issue of having this asymmetry between the majority and the minority in our fundamental rights, both have to be addressed and addressed soon.
Thank you, sir. So we come to the next question, which Shri Muthuraman has raised, and I'd like to direct this to you, Mayank sir. What is about the problem? Everybody knows about the problem of crypto Christians, people who retain their Hindu religion on the certificate, but who practice Christianity for all practical purposes in their personal lives. And how do we, is this a healthy thing? And is there any solution if it is not healthy to curb this issue?
We are looked upon as Glaxo babies, as I said. As a Hindu community, we are very, very pleased and thank you kind of people, So such people are not able to win civilizational wars, Please de do, please mat karo, please convert mat ho, please Hindu naam hai to Hindu raho. Nobody is going to listen. So my heroes are the Bodos, So I feel that all Hindus who are in the activist field should be sent to Bodos in Assam for training. They should live with those tribes and they should try to become men, So, we have to, all these crypto Christians will suddenly become very good Hindus and they will bring Vedas and they will say, see, I'm an expert in Vedas. And, I was just gone to the Christians only to find out some certain things about them. I was doing some intelligence work for them, for the Hindu society. He will change the moment you, Sitaramji Goel told me this. These are not my ideas. I told him why some Jains say that we are not Hindus, why some Sikhs say that we are not Hindus. So he said, आप नाली में लेटे हुए हैं और उनको इनवाइट कर रहे हैं कि आप भी आकर नाली में लेट जाइए हमारे साथ. तो वो क्यों लेटेंगे आपके साथ नाली में? तो उनकी बात बिल्कुल, वो हरियाणा के गांव के आदमी थे, वो बिल्कुल he used to say the right thing and without mincing words. So we must cease to become Glaxo babies. We must try to revive Shastra and what today's Dashara. This is a nice day to, start all this.
Yes, sir. On the subject
of Christians, let me make this I used to think the crypto-Christian is the term invented by non-Christians to blame the Christians, but there's an encyclopedia of Christianity and it defines what crypto-Christian means. And the definition given is the Christians who are known to the church, but are not known to the secular authorities of the nations in which they live in. And their assessment is that if in India we count the crypto-Christians and Christians together, there will be 6% or 6.5% of India is Christian today, while the census counts about between 2 and 2.5%. So there are, at least according to their authoritative sources, there are 4% of Indians who are crypto-Christians, who are known to the church, but not known to the church as Christians, but not known to the secular authorities as Christians. And the problem is because there is this constitutional order of 1950, which grants the scheduled caste status only to Hindus, both Bauds and Jains and Sikhs, and not to the Christians. And for that, they have been fighting. There was this great Ranganath Mishra who gave a formal official commission report saying that we should change that order to allow Christian scheduled caste to be counted as scheduled caste. The day we do that, India will not be 2% Christian. India will be more than 6% Christian, could be more than that also. Somebody in the chats has said that there's no article of the Constitution allowing them to teach their religion. I think there's an error. There is an article of the Constitution which allows the minorities to run their educational institutions as minority institutions. And that's what I was referring to.
Yes, sir. So the another question which people had is about we have spoken about the issue of conversion in the the northeastern states specifically and within our border states. The other big concern is about the conversion on our coastal regions like Ramanathapuram, Kanyakumari, and all that. And what can we do to secure our coastal borders? Because these are a very critical, considering the long coastline that we have and the porousness, inherent porousness of a coastal border. How can we secure these regions?
One immediate thing will be to have a nationalist government in Kerala. Today, it should have been done yesterday, but it must be done tomorrow. Because without that, Kerala and Kanyakumari, this side, are almost impossible to keep outside the control of the Christians and the Muslims. The data shows no silver lining. And beyond that, there is the area around Udupi, one of the most sacred areas of India, which has the same problem. Unless we have a state, as I said earlier, protecting the coast, protecting the border is a strategic issue.
In fact, to give you an instance of what is happening, recently there was a storm alert warning for fishermen, which was issued by the government of Tamil Nadu. The circular was not sent to the panchayat offices. It was sent to the parish priests in Kanyakumari because they have their outposts among all the fishing villages. And if you have to get this information, you cannot go through the official government channels or the panchayats. You have to go through the church because the church exerts this kind of control. So this was really, this is a very recent happening. And this was extremely worrying, which is why we also came up with this question. Now, there was another question about, people, one of the earliest questions was, what is it that an ordinary average citizen of this country can do? Forgetting about the government and the official machinery and the police and so on, an ordinary citizen. How can we handle this situation?
Mayank, you will say something, and say I'm willing to talk on that issue, but you say
No,
something.
no, no, whatever you feel like. If you want to,
Please say something, and then
see, the ordinary citizen is no different from any organization. Even one man can change the scenario. So if he really understands the situation, if he devotes himself to this cause, we need volunteers, and these volunteers are sometimes not members of Vishwa Hindu Parishad or RSS. Most of them, they come from the larger society. So each and every person has a big role in informing people around him, first understanding the issue, then informing people around him, and then trying to analyze the problem and giving a solution to it in his own way. And in the era of social media, whatever one man does, it can immediately come on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and it reaches millions of people. So the social media also helps to magnify his work, and he also gets help from various other organizations who are involved in it. For example, in Tamil Nadu, the Muslims are only about 6%, only 6%. But the jihadi incidents, the jihadi incidents, especially against Hindu organizations and organizations like Hindu Munnani and RSS and Vishwa Hindu Parishad, 300 jihadi events have happened. And it is mainly because of the Dravidian politics, where they allow all kinds of nonsense to happen. I mean, first a person who in 1984, Basha, he was released despite being a criminal who was involved in attacks. And then he was asked to go. And then he formed Aluma. In 1993, there was a huge attack on the RSS office, and many other things happened. So, and now today, the jihad which is happening in Tamil Nadu on highways, there are advertisements which come in newspapers which say that every 60 kilometers we want land on the Tirunelveli highway, and after every 60 kilometers we will put 2 shops and 1 mosque, and they are advertising. And the highway which comes from Bangalore to Kanyakumari, now there it is 30 kilometers. And in places like Namakkal, where there is mostly Hindu population, there 60 grocery shops come up suddenly, and these people have come from Ramanathampuram. They are Muslims, and suddenly these grocery shops come up. Like this, malls are also coming up, and the local Shetties and the other communities who are having those shops, that business, they are suffering. So there is a land jihad going on, there is a highway jihad going on, and love jihad. 1.5 lakh women have gone to this thing. I'm quoting, I have been extensively worked with Mr. B.L. Gautaman, who has gone into a lot of detail. He has a channel there, and I have interviewed him, and a lot of evidence I've gathered. There are areas in Tamil Nadu where no-go areas are there, and you have to take the permission of the local Jamaat, who will allow
Yes,
you
sir.
to go
So
into that area.
that's a very interesting point, and that brings me to the next question that somebody had, sir, which we can probably take between Professor Bajaj and Mayank ji. That there is this very clear demarcation of areas, creation of no-go zones, both by Christian communities, as well as Christian communities do it in a more, surreptitious way, while the Muslim communities do it pretty openly, where areas are demarcated as no-go zones or as Sharia zones, and where the writ of the state does not run. How can the state ensure that the writ of the state runs in these places?
Comrade Stalin will not do it. Comrade Stalin will not do it. Neither Mr. Lenin will do it. I mean, we have to have a nationalist government in Tamil Nadu. And our nice Amma, she created a Ramanathan, a district. She created a taluka in one of these areas which is Kelakeri segment, Taluka in Ramanathapuram, 80% Muslim, a new Taluka was created. This is called the Mallapuram of Tamil Nadu. So unless we have a nationalist government, and the people of Tamil Nadu, they are very, very Hindu, very, very Hindu. I mean, the maximum Ganesh pujas, the maximum even the Kavadiyas are there, and the religiosity is superb. I mean, the people of Tamil Nadu, the Hindus, they are much better Hindus than what we have in northern India. So I think that if there is a nationalist government, and in Tamil Nadu, as Sir was also saying for Kerala and Tamil Nadu also he mentioned, that is the only solution. I mean, how people will do it themselves, it's not possible. You need the influence of the state.
That's a interesting point, sir. So this is where like kind of getting into the 1 hour time frame for our session. And there's one question that I'd like to ask Professor Bajaj. One question that some of the people here had: how do we ensure that the way the mullahs or the Christian clergy are doing something in a sense, they're doing something positive in the sense that they're able to lead their community? How is it possible to enable our priests to be able to community leaders, to be able to, if not community leaders, at least to be something beyond just somebody who recites a few mantras for you, and who will be able to provide emotional support, or who would be somebody who can support the community?
First, let me just read out this Article 30. It says, all minorities, whether based on religion or language, shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. This says all minorities. It doesn't say all people of India, all communities of India. I think that is one of the crux of things which is causing problems in India. But coming to your question, I said in the beginning, at some point, that religion, for us to be religious, religion has to be practiced. And there are ways that Christianity is practiced. They have a structure through which it's done. There is ways that the Islam is practiced. They have a proper worked out structure up to the level of the devotee. He knows which mosque he has to go to on what day. And every Christian knows which parish he has to go to. Who is the person he has to consult for private as well as personal issues. It is generally assumed and is generally said, and sometime it became fashionable to be in India, that Hinduism is not a practicing religion. If it's not a practicing religion, it's not a religion. What we have forgotten is that Hinduism did not have a universal umbrella kind of organization through it was practiced. It was practiced, and perhaps it is still being practiced in certain communities, through the sampradayas and the jatis. And if you have given up the jatis and sampradayas, then there is no way to practice Hinduism. And I think the sampradayas still, I know Pejawar Swami's people, they will know what practicing Hinduism means. They will gather somewhere once in a while. They'll discuss all those issues. We have broken those structures of sampradaya till we do not create those structures, reinvent those structures. And maybe it is not very difficult. Like Kanchi Acharya can do it, Pejawar Swami can. Everywhere there are still remnants of the structures which have gone down to the village. In fact, once I posed this question that you are posing me to Chinna Jayar Swami of
Tirupati.
Tirupati, and he said that I am willing to do everything. I will go to every village with you. I'll create an army which will go to every village. But we are not, somehow we have changed our direction of mind in some direction. There is no way of practicing a religion individually. It's a community exercise. Sangat is important. In all of Satsang is important. And unless do Sangat and Satsang, which the Sikhs do it very well, and unless you have a large number of young people going out and learning, and you have structures where the Sikhs have these taksals, where children can go and learn both the kirtan and the shabda, the recitation and the singing. These are highly technical exercises for which the arrangements have to be made. The arrangements in India for the Hindus are still there, but they have become much smaller than the community that we have. That is one issue, that the religion has to be practiced. And what is the religion always has to be practiced through the sampradaya. It can be a small sampradaya, so large sampradaya, which will then create preachers of the kind you are asking for. I think we necessarily have to come back to that. Go and talk to people like Chinnajayar Swami. Go and talk to people like Shankaracharya of Kanchi. They are wanting to do it. They are willing to do it. We have to get ready to do it. That's one. The other is to, as I've been saying from the beginning, it is not a cost-free exercise to protect your religion. That Dharma Samrakshana is not such an easy job. If it was such an easy job, we would have been talking about it all the time. You have to sacrifice something in order to do Dharma Samrakshana. We wouldn't be, those who did it, we wouldn't be treating them as martyrs. We think it is some cost-free exercise, which it is not. It has to be done by a society, by a samaj. It has to be done. And say one of the things in data that I am seeing is that almost all of India, except I think 3-4 states, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Bihar, the fertility rate has gone below 2.1. And it is the Hindu fertility rate, which is, this is the average. Hindu fertility is much lower. And nowhere the Muslim fertility rate is below 2.5. Most places will be above 3. 2.1 is considered replacement rate. That for every father and mother, produce one child for each to replace each of them. And then you put 0.1 extra for the wastage. 2.1 is a replacement rate of a population. Below that, when the fertility rates go, then the populations shrink. And we have not concerned. We have to do something about that, that the population do not begin to shrink. Till now we were worried the Muslims are increasing. Now we need to be worried that we are decreasing. And that has not registered anywhere. So Hindus have to be willing to pay the price. And
so that's in terms of closing comments, sir gave pretty much a good summary of what we need to do. Probably, if Mayank sir, if you could just take a quick 1 minute to summarize our conversation so far from your side, we can close this session for now.
It is, as I said, demography is a cocktail, along with ideology, madrasas, the numbers, and mixed with the jihadi ideology, it becomes a deadly affair for our country. And unless we also have some willingness to, revive our Shastra Dharma, and that comes from Brahma Tej only. So unless we show some guts, this thing is not going to get solved. We are not able to handle these mobs in street riots. I have been observing very closely. I have been observing the lynching which is happening. I have been observing what is happening to our girls, what is happening to what Love Jihad is doing, how businesses are being taken over, how all kinds of jihad is happening around us. And we are very busy in making money, luxurious life, new avenues of enjoyment, going to some foreign country, which fortunately pandemic has stopped for some time, but it will again start. So there's no harm in going abroad and going for a vacation. But if that is your only aim, of life, and you can't devote a little bit of time, even little of your time, for Hindu society, and for at least if you can't do anything, you give funds.
Yeah.
So this kind of selflessness and bravery, this could win the battle for us. Otherwise, there is only one chance in a million that Hindu society could survive.
So
No,
it's entirely,
wrong.
yeah.
Hindu
Yes,
society will survive. Let us not. We may be weak, but Hindu society is strong. It will survive. It has survived millennia. It will survive another several millennia. It is Anadi. It will remain Ananta. Don't worry about that. Don't even say that. Let it.
So on that note, with a lot of gratitude to the esteemed two speakers, Professor Bajaj and Shri Mayank Jain, I thank you all. Jai Shri Ram.
I'm changing my mind.
Change to Tokyo.
Kinda like your kind.
Paris.
You have me at hey, 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 hey.
Hey.
Be back in May.
Cape Town.
You have me at hey, 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 hey.
Your passport, please.
उसे छोड़ो. तुम कहाँ से हो?
Hey, hey, hey.
Chase the world with stylish bags from Skybags.
सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Thank you all. Namaste. We'll see you tomorrow.
स्मार्ट का पद वीर पद, देश का पद जीत पद, प्रश्नों की तार से स्मार्ट का पद सजा, अन्याय को ना करके न्याय का प्रचार कर, देश पर प्रहार है, हार मत प्रहार कर, आज कर, आवाज कर, तांडव सा युद्ध कर, स्मार्ट का प्रचार कर. स्मार्ट हमरारा, स्मार्ट हमरारा, स्मार्ट हमरारा, स्मार्ट हमरारा, स्मार्ट हमरारा, स्मार्ट हमरारा.
All nationalistic media, join SMaRT and make nation strong.